Veterans Radio is dedicated to all the men and women who have served or are currently serving in the armed forces of the United States of America.
From the studios of Ave Maria Radio in Ann Arbor, this is Veterans Radio. And now, here's your host, Dale Throneberry.
And good morning, America, and welcome to Veterans Radio, and welcome to all of our listeners out there here in the local Ann Arbor area and around the world. We're coming to you live from the studios of WDEO 990 AM in, well, not quite so beautiful Ann Arbor, Michigan this morning.
It's always beautiful. It's always beautiful in Ann Arbor.
That's true, but the sun is hiding today. It may be out again a little bit later.
But it's sunny here in the studio.
It is always sunny in the studio, and it is especially sunny in our control room with our engineer today, Nina.
The lovely Nina.
Good morning. How are you?
We are all fine. Thank you very much, Nina, for all that you do for the program. It's greatly appreciated.
It's my pleasure.
Joining me in the studio is my partner today is Bob Gould. Bob,
well,
how are you doing?
Welcome to all my brothers and sisters out there and to the world. Mm-hmm.
That's right. And we got a little anecdote we'd like to tell, a little story today. As you all know, here in the local area, we have breakfast every Saturday morning at the local Big Boy restaurant at the intersection of U.S. 23 and Plymouth Road. And the owner of this particular Big Boy, Joe, unfortunately had an accident last weekend. And as he explained it, he came out of his driveway much too fast, and the car that was coming down the road legally didn't get a chance to stop, so they stopped each other. But the EMT operator that was there to help Joe and was getting ready to take him into his ambulance looked down at him and says, "Oh, I know you. You're the owner of the Big Boy restaurant, aren't you?" And the guy goes, ow, yes, I am. And he says, "Hey, you know Bob and Dale, don't you?" I listen to Veterans Radio every Saturday morning. So whoever the anonymous EMT is out there, thank you so very much. We greatly appreciate that.
We have a reputation.
We do. We have a reputation that we need to uphold.
It's nice to hear that.
Which can be a little dangerous sometimes. So anyways, so we were talking with Joe this morning, and it looks like we may be trying to figure out how to do a remote.
Right from the Big Boy.
Sometime later on to do a fundraiser. And speaking of fundraising, if you guys out there, men and women and civilians and military alike, if you like what you're hearing on Veterans Radio, we could really use your support. And to do that, you can send us your donation to Veterans Radio.
I mean, now it's time to do it. Now it's time.
That's right.
To pony up, give us a hand. That's right. We've got our hand out, and you can. Well, the handout to pull us out. I don't mean handout. No, like a hat in the hand. No. To pull us, and we'll be hanging on, and we want to continue on bringing this broadcasting. So
we do.
The rubber is hitting the road, folks. Now it is, and you like the programming that we have, especially the one last week. Gosh, That was super. The one about the Dewey.
Oh, yes.
And when we had the captain of the ship who was actually there. That's the kind of programming that we bring to you.
That's what we do.
That's actually Larry King stuff.
Oh, we're way beyond Larry King.
Way beyond.
Anyhow, but if you'd like to help us out and make a contribution, you can just send us your donation to Veterans Radio at P.O. Box 3085. That's 3085, Ann Arbor, Michigan, 48106. 48106. We also encourage you that are listening to us on WDEO to keep supporting WDEO. They do a great job for us too.
But when you do send us your donation, make the check out to Veterans Radio. Right. So that way it goes into our account. Right. So it's got to be out to...
Yeah, don't make it out to Bob or to me.
All right. And Dale, what's that address again?
That's P.O. Box 3085, Ann Arbor, Michigan, 48106. Thank you for listening. Next thing we want to talk about is another fundraiser that's going on, and also joining me in the studio today, and I'm going to have him back on later on, is our old friend dog handler, the dog man, Vance McCrum. Vance, welcome to Veterans Radio.
Thank you, Dale. Appreciate the offer to be in the studio this morning, and a good morning to all my fellow handlers out there around the world.
What a voice this guy has.
I know, we keep trying to recruit him. To all of the dog handlers out there, and to all of you dog lovers out there, today's program is about soldier dogs and their handlers and their training and some of the stories that go along with them. And Vance was a dog handler in Vietnam. When were you there?
I was in country in 1965. I was a United States Air Force dog handler from 63 through 67.
And your dog's name was?
Well, there were three. My first dog was Casey. The dog I had in country was Dutch. And my last dog was Teddy.
They do change it around. I was amazed when I was reading that story. I'm getting ahead of myself. When I was reading this story, I was amazed how they changed off quite often. But the other reason I have you here is I wanted to talk about the dinner tonight, the VVA Chapter 310 Recognition Dinner, the Gary Lilly Annual Recognition Dinner. And do you have that information off the top of your head?
Absolutely, Dale. Thank you very much. We renamed the VVA Chapter 310's Recognition Dinner to the Gary Lilly Recognition Dinner, and it's a spaghetti dinner. And it's every year we have this event where we honor two chapter members, a Chapter of the Year and the Jerry Sims Award winner, as well as some other people who support our chapter, and we recognize them, and we do it every year.
And the recipe that they're following for the spaghetti dinner, by the way, is our old friend and partner Gary Lilly's recipe, and so nobody can mess with that.
Secret sauce.
Secret recipe.
Secret sauce.
That's what I understand. Nobody knows what's in it.
You know, and I want to say to all our listeners out there, yes, we do talk about local fundraisers, etc., but do check your VVA, American Legion, VFW, that's nearby, because these very recognition dinners are being held everywhere throughout the year. So do check, all you military folks, that's right, do check with those local organizations.
Right, and if you want us to promote it, give us a call or send us an email, and we'll get it out over the air for you. But that's tonight at 6 o'clock at UAW Local. Boy, these glasses don't work at all anymore. UAW Local 898 Union Hall. That's on Textile Road in Ypsilanti, Michigan. 6 o'clock. See you. We'll all be there, and we're anxious for you to come out.
That's an order.
That's right. That's an order. And speaking of orders, this one is to Nina. We'll be right back with our guest, the author of Soldier Dogs.
You have honorably served the United States and the Marine Corps in times of peace and war. Now we would like to serve you. The Marine Scholars Program covers the total cost of attending Ave Maria University by combining resources from the Ave Maria University Marine Scholars Funding, federal financial aid entitlements, and the GI Bill. The benefits are granted for the duration of the recipient's study at Ave Maria University, contingent upon good conduct and good academic standing. The Marine Scholars Program is open to all reserve and active component Marines and other combat veterans of Operation Enduring Freedom and Operation Iraqi Freedom who have honorably served our country. Please visit us online at www.avemaria.edu or call the Assistant Director of Admissions at 239-280-2552. You helped us. Now let us help you. Semper Fi.
And we're back here on Veterans Radio, and today's program is dedicated to the dogs of the world and to their handlers. And joining me here on Veterans Radio is the author of Soldier Dogs, The Untold Story of America's Canine Heroes. And it's Maria Goodavage. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing your name right, Maria.
That's pretty good.
It's just a great story, Maria, and I want to thank you so much for writing it, for one thing. And I'm excited to have you on the program today so that we can talk about what these amazing animals go through in their training and when they are deployed. Welcome to Veterans Radio, Maria.
Thank you very much, Dale.
So tell me what motivated you to write this particular book?
Well, I actually grew up steeped in a little bit of talk about dogs in war, because my dad was a very young soldier in World War II, and he went over there, and he wasn't a handler, but he was really comforted by the military dogs who were there, and actually the mascot dogs. I actually have a great picture I've got to put up on my website of him with 3 puppies that he found and adopted and kind of took in, and a monkey too. But he told me all about what these war dogs did back then, and how at the end of the day these guys would be really, some people would be homesick. He got homesick a little bit there, and sad and tough days, and the dog would always be there, and the dog would seem to know who to go to and who needed the comforting, and he said it was just you couldn't believe the magic these dogs brought and how they saved lives. So that was with me all through my life, and I was a journalist. I worked for a number of newspapers, USA Today, and then I got into the dog writing world as well, and it was collecting books on military dog history, including some really good ones by Mike Lemish, and I was thinking, I'm really going to write a book one of these days and honor these dogs and handlers and tell people what they do, and then getting some research done, and then the Osama bin Laden raid hit last year, and it became pretty well known that there was a dog involved in the raid with the Navy SEAL Team 6, and people didn't realize that, and the media went crazy for this dog and the fact that there are actually dogs in the military, and I thought, this is finally I'm going to start writing this book, or continue writing this book that I'd started. So that was the timing for that, but I've always known about them and really been in great admiration for these dog teams and how much they do.
Well, you had really unlimited access, it seems, to Lackland Air Force Base, where most of these dogs are trained. Is that correct?
Not completely unlimited, but I was very, very lucky that they trusted me to. It took a lot. It took a lot to get in there. It took a lot of proving myself to them, but when I was in there, I got really incredible access to a lot of things that journalists hadn't gotten access to, and the amount of time I got to spend there with certain programs was really incredible. And I got to, Lackland, as most of your listeners probably know, is Dog Central. It's where the dogs get trained in dog school. It's where the handlers get trained, and it's kind of like the place to go if you're going to learn about what these dogs and handlers go through. And it was a pretty amazing time, and it's intense there. It's really amazing what the training is, and also the medical, the induction that the dogs have to go through, shall we say, to become soldier dogs or Marine dogs or whatever they're going to be is pretty amazing.
I've got Vance McCrum here in the studio with me, and if you listen to our intro, he was a dog handler in Vietnam. And when you started talking about Lackland Air Force Base, he was nodding his head, because I guess that's the place to go.
Everybody. 99% of the handlers went through Lackland, and that's all branches of service. But the Army and the Marines had some different locations for training as well. But Lackland is the center, if you will.
Sorry, did you go through their events?
Yes, I went through Lackland in May of 1963.
Wow. And
it was in existence then.
Yeah.
Well, look at that. Here's another source for your next book.
Yes, definitely.
I'm glad that she mentioned Mike Lemish, because Mike has wrote 2 books. In his last book, unfortunately, I've forgotten the name on. I sent him some pictures of the first group of guys who left for Vietnam in 1965. And Mike is a great historian on military working dogs.
Yeah, he is the historian. He's amazing. His books are incredible, and the research that went into his books. I mean, he went all over the place, and he spent years doing this incredibly intensive research on the history. And I have great admiration for him and his books. And really, I go buy them if you like military working dog history. Absolutely.
Well, for those of you out there who have questions for Maria or Vance, or anything about soldier dogs and their handlers, you can give us a call right here at Veterans Radio at 877-573-7825. That's 877-573-7825. We're talking with Maria Goodavage?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's good.
Nina and I were talking about where do we put the accent on this one. Anyway, she is the author of Soldier Dogs, The Untold Story of America's Canine Heroes. And I've got to get him on the line right away here. I've got the president of the U.S. War Dogs Association, Ron Aiello. Ron, welcome to Veterans Radio.
Oh, thank you for having me on. It's an honor to be on your show, especially with Maria, who wrote Soldier Dogs. I think she's done an outstanding job of explaining what the war dogs are.
Thanks, Ron.
Well, it's always great to get the endorsement from the head of the organization that knows probably as much about these dogs as anybody does.
Yeah,
well, I try to keep up.
This is an incredible organization. This is a great place to look to if you want to help today's dogs. Ron, I'm sure will tell you about that, but he was in Vietnam too with his dog, and he has quite some stories.
Ron, when were you in Vietnam?
I arrived in Vietnam March 1966 and left in April 67. I was one of the first of 30 Marine Scout Dog teams to be deployed to Vietnam.
And the Marines, they were all up in I Corps, correct?
We were in I Corps, right, where our base camp was just outside of Da Nang, and then we had a temporary base down in Chu Lai.
Yeah, Ron, this is Vance. I was at Da Nang in 1965, and our kennels, the Air Force kennels, were temporary, but we were right next to about 6,000 Marines, so we were probably the safest people on Earth.
Yeah, you were on the other side of the airstrip, I believe.
That's correct.
Yeah. I have a good friend that was there in '65. Bucky Grimm, he's our treasurer.
Bucky Grimm, yep.
He was Air Force, and we were there almost around the same time, but we really didn't know each other. We met each other back in '93, and just became really good friends. And I think that usually happens with dog handlers.
This is what's amazing about this program, as you bring people together and you find out, oh, I knew you 45 years ago and haven't seen you since.
That does happen.
I know.
But I got to tell you, Soldier Dogs is just fantastic. It goes right from World War II with Stubby right through today's K-9 teams, and of course Maria touched base on Cairo, and one of the things in the book right at the very end, and it's only like 2 pages, but it actually explains what the dogs are, what they do. Their classification as far as their actual job, of whether they're patrol dogs or bomb sniffing dogs, and she tells you about it. It only takes a couple pages, but most people ask that. What do the dogs do over there? And she explains it all in this book.
Well, and we're going to go back to Maria right now and talk a little bit about that, because you do a great job of explaining what the various categories of these dogs' professions, I guess, are. I'm trying to think of the term.
Their discipline.
And the discipline. Well, and the thing that you point out to me, Maria, that I thought was really valuable is that dogs are considered equipment.
Yeah, and
trying to get that changed. I understand that, but right now,
Ron has been trying to get that changed for many, many years through his actions to just get them the right kind of treatment, to get them back from when they're when they deploy, they come back. That's the good thing about today's military is if you're in Afghanistan with your dog, as long as you're both alive, you're coming back together, and that's obviously a really big change from Vietnam. But if you're a dog and handler team in let's say Germany, and your dog is retired in Germany, your dog right now is going to stay in Germany in the kennel where the dog's been retired. If someone wants to adopt that dog in the U.S., they're going to have to pay for the dog to come back. And that's pretty prohibitive sometimes and can prevent some really good possible future owners from doing that and from even knowing these dogs are up or even trying. And there's a bill right now in Congress and the Senate called the Canine Members of the Armed Forces Act, which it could really help that. It could help dogs become sort of less equipment. It will help them come back. It will help them get veterinary care for, I think it's just pre-existing conditions. Ron, you can maybe help me with that one. And also something Ron and his U.S. War Dog Association has been working on forever is getting these dogs the recognition they so greatly deserve. Because right now, these dogs are not officially given honors. Right? If you hear about a dog who gets a Purple Heart or any kind of recognition, it's not sanctioned by the DoD. It's a commanding officer or someone who realizes the incredible value of these dogs and wants to do something nice for the dog and handler. But the DoD doesn't sanction that right now, and the handlers are not too happy about that. And Ron, I don't know if you can. I know you can contribute a whole show on this.
Back. I guess right after we went into Afghanistan back in late 2001. I had a lot of handlers that were emailing me and saying, "Why can't my dog get recognition for what he or she does?" And I said, "Good question. Why can't they?" And I wrote to the DoD. I think it was at that time Cohen was in as Secretary of Defense, and I wrote a letter to him, and of course they got back to me and says, "We don't give recognition to dogs. Medals are only for humans." And I wrote several times every year. And then my last time I wrote to them, I changed it a little. I said, "Look," "I'm not asking for any of these medals that go to the soldiers or Marines or so forth to be used for these dogs. I'm asking the DoD to actually create a medal specifically for the dog, so this way it doesn't infringe on any other awards or medals that the soldiers get." And of course, then they turned around and still said no. So my last option was, we are willing, our organization is willing to create a medal, a service award medal for these dogs. Would you sanction it? And of course they came back and says, "Well, we can't sanction a civilian organization." So we went ahead anyway, and we created our own service award for the military dogs. And the soldiers, the handlers, they make a request. We have a form on our website, and they send it in, and we actually send out a certificate and the medal to the dog.
I think that's terrific. If you want to get in on a conversation about soldier dogs here, we've got experts all over the place today. Give us a call here at Veterans Radio at 877-573-7825. We're talking with Maria Goodavage, the author of Soldier Dogs. We've got the president of the Dog Handlers Association on the phone, and we've got a dog handler in the studio. So if you have any questions, feel free to give us a call. Maria, I wanted to ask you about the dogs. What type of dogs are they looking for? I know you have a golden retriever named Jake, who you don't think really could quite make it. He's loyal and all the other things, but he might get distracted. But
yeah, he's actually a yellow lab. So speaking of distracted, he's a bit goofy, but he has the drive. What they're really looking for, yes, breeds are super important, but they don't really go along breed lines. If you have a mixed breed dog, that's fine. In fact, first of all, the DoD buys most dogs overseas in Europe and Eastern Europe, and that's because they have a very long history of. And this is today. I'm not talking historically, but today, because they have a long history of these police dog sports, and they have been bred for kind of the stuff that police and U.S. military working dogs do, and so they've got that, and apparently the U.S. just does not have that going. There are some dogs that we do procure in the United States from breeders here, but they're very few and far between. So we go over there and buy trips about 6 times a year and look for these dogs through these vendors, and they've been selected by the breeders, sell them to the vendors, and they're about 2 years old when they get them. And generally these days, a lot of Shepherds and a lot of Malinois and Belgian Malinois, like the dog who was involved on the Osama bin Laden raid, and a lot of and they'll mix other breeds into them, though. Let's say you want a Malinois who has a little more stability, a little less, say, nervousness. You might put a little Shepherd in them, or sometimes we'll even mix pit bulls or all kinds of other breeds in them. So sometimes it's hard to tell the difference between certain breeds that are military working dogs, and they just make a guess and say, this looks more like a Malinois because it has this line, but it could equally be a Shepherd. So it's very interesting, but beyond the breed, they're looking for, and it sounds funny, but they're looking for the drive to play with the ball, the drive to find the ball. So what they do is they'll take a Kong, and a hard red rubber ball usually, or a tennis ball, and they will hide it somewhere, and they will look for the dog's drive to find that ball and to play with that dog and its ball, and it has to be super strong for them to want that ball, because that ball and the praise from the handler are the two paychecks, as they call it, that these dogs get. And if they don't want their paycheck enough, they're going to say, dude, it's hot here. I'm in Afghanistan. I don't care about that. I'm not going to work. And so they don't want that happening over there. So they find these dogs, hopefully, usually, with the high drive, high play and prey drive. And then they bring them back to the U.S. and train them up at Lackland. And then they don't really they don't say, okay, well, you look like you could be a good combat tracker. You look like you could be a good, just a plain old explosive detector. They go by need usually. And when they do get a dog like a Labrador Retriever, they're not going to put them, they're not going to be a patrol dog. They're not going to be attacking the bad guy or anything. So they'll just be pretty much sniffer dogs, sometimes combat trackers these days. I met a dog named Lars. I don't know if you came across him in the book yet, but he's a little Jack Russell Terrier, and he was supposed to be a drug-sniffing dog, but he ended up being trained as a bomb-sniffing dog because of a mistake at dog school. I don't know what happened, but he's a great little bomb sniffer now. He's not in the front lines or anything. He's here in the U.S., and when I met him, he was in a submarine, and we went down the submarine together, and it was an exercise, but sure enough, he found the explosives under a pillow in a bunk, and he has a little Napoleon attitude. He thinks he is just all that. And so it can be any breed, but generally these days, Shepherds and Malinois.
Well, it's interesting. For those of you that we do try to webcast our program when we have the opportunity. When the slide that we're showing right now is of that dog, Lars, getting ready to go down in the hole of the sub. And
that's a lot easier than a shepherd going down the hole in that sub, and that's what they seem to usually have on that sub, they said. So back-breaking work for the people lowering the sub, the dog into the sub when it's not a small dog like that.
Yeah, they've been using terriers going back to early 80s. Lackland had them, and they were using them on also aircraft because they're a small dog. They can get under seats into small crevices to smell for explosives. So they have been using them for quite a while, but they're really cute to see when they're working. I mean, they move so quickly, and they do a really good job.
Yeah.
I just think I thought the whole story was funny, and I have finished the book. I must say, I finished it. It might have been pretty early this morning, but I did finish it. And it's a great read for those of you out there that want to know more about military dogs or soldier dogs and really what they do and the different types of dogs. And when we've got about 2 minutes before we take a break at the bottom of the hour, and when we come back, I want to talk a little bit about the different types of dogs and their different specialties. But I've got a call on the line from somebody who's going to ask an interesting little question, I believe, and it's got Terry from Ypsilanti, Michigan. And Terry, welcome to Veterans Radio.
Hi. Thanks for taking my call.
Understand you had a little question.
Yeah, this is going to sound dumb. But when I think back to dogs in the military, I go back to the days of my youth and think of Rin Tin Tin and Rusty. And also, I also think of Sergeant Preston of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police and his dog.
Yukon King.
Right. And those kinds of portrayals. And I just was wondering, within your studies of the history going back, were there ever dogs like that in the days even before World War II? And the other part is, the other portrayal of dogs is always as guard dogs, with especially the Germans with using guard dogs guarding prisoners. How much which came first, the use of dogs to guard prisoners by the Germans, and then us taking up that whole strategy of utilizing dogs, or where did that all come from?
Well, we did. Oh, go ahead. Did someone else chime in on that, or?
Nope,
okay, we'll take it. We did definitely take the lead. Follow the lead of the Germans and what was going on in Europe. Even in World War I, there were people in the U.S. who really wanted to form a military dog. A military working dog, let's say, troops, and it never happened. We were seeing how powerful they were over there, not just as guard dogs, but as even dogs who would messenger dogs, or dogs who would drag drag supplies for they call Red Cross dogs for the Red Cross or for the medical use, from one place to another, and they did have like gas sniffing dogs, and they were utilized in all kinds of ways even back then. But we didn't get our official program going until World War II. I got
to jump in here, Maria. We're going to go to a hard break. We'll be right back. You're listening to Veterans Radio, and we're back on Veterans Radio, and we're talking with Maria Goodavage, the author of Soldier Dogs: The Untold Story of America's Canine Heroes. Also on the phone is the president of the U.S. War Dogs Association, Ron Aiello. And in the studio with me is Vance McCrum, a dog handler, Air Force dog handler from back in the 60s. And we're just finishing up a question from a caller about how the soldier dogs evolved in U.S. history. And Maria, you were answering that question for Terry and Ypsilanti.
Yeah, I think we got up to World War II there when we did after the attack on Pearl Harbor. The American Kennel Club and a group called Dogs for Defense got this going, and we said this is about time. We need these dogs. They are so important to the fight, and they're going to really help us. And then it was finally okayed. World War II is when the U.S. dog program officially started, and they didn't go overseas to get the dogs from places like Germany. That would have not been a good thing. They appealed to dog owners here to donate their pets for the war effort, and that's where you see Rin Tin Tin come in the movies and all that. But the public response was absolutely overwhelming, and people really wanted to donate their dogs, and it was pretty amazing what our pet dogs could do, and the difference in what they do then and what they do now. They're extremely highly trained now, these dogs we buy, but the dogs back then, when my dad was in the war, were pretty amazing and what they were able to do, and they were really they were the big heroes, and they got a lot of press. I just got a book in the mail called Buddies. I don't know if any of you know that book. It's absolutely gorgeous, and it's more about the mascot dogs in the various wars, and it just shows the companionship these dogs provide. And sometimes they did these very brave feats in the meantime. Well, and back to World War I, and Sergeant Stubby, someone had mentioned Sergeant Stubby, and he, untrained, alerted to a gas attack by the Germans and saved many, many American lives. And he also was able to nab a German infiltrator. And this is an untrained dog. This is a little pit bull who saved many lives. And I actually visited him recently in the Smithsonian Institution's American History Museum, where he still stands. So if anyone takes a summer vacation, goes to D.C. this summer, you can go see an old World War I hero dog. Even though he wasn't an official military dog, he was sneaked overseas, and shows that dogs didn't have to be these super highly trained military dogs back then. Now we have these amazing soldier dogs who are, but there's a long history, and even before World War I, people were using dogs. I
think it's really.
Can I expand on that a little bit?
Please.
Actually, if you look at a lot of photos or images of the American Indians, you always see that there were dog packs with them. And what they would do is when they set up their camp at night, they used their dogs as sentry dogs. Mm-hmm. And when the cavalry would try to sneak in or raid their camp, when they got in there, they would find the fire burning, food setting around, but nobody would be in the camp, because the dog would alert them that the cavalry were trying to sneak in. So our cavalry actually started to kind of use that a little bit themselves. On a very limited basis, they would actually bring a dog along with them on patrol. And that was one of the earlier, you could say, sentry dogs being used in the United States.
All right, good historical fact. Thanks, Terry, for your call. I wanted to get back. I want to remind people that to go to Maria's website for this book, it's soldierdogs.com, and there's a great selection of photographs. The book includes great photographs also of the various dogs that she talks about in the book and their handlers. And there is even a picture of the dog in the Smithsonian who was, sort of like Roy Rogers and Trigger. They live forever. Could you just tell me a little bit, Maria, about the different types of dogs? Because you mentioned that each, not their breed or anything, but their skill levels, what they learn in school?
Oh, they're specialties
Yes,
for their jobs, I call them. Yeah, well, today the most important job are the ones who sniff out the bombs. So they're either explosives detection dogs or patrol explosives detection dogs. And I'd say, and they're called PEDs or EDs. And the PEDs, the PEDDs, the patrol explosive detection dogs, are the ones who are most commonly used in today's fight. They lead everyone's life is in their nose, basically, and they lead the troops through these mine-infested fields or buildings and poppy fields, grapevine areas, and it's just incredible what they can do and what they sniff out and the conditions. So they lead the way, then the handler. Sometimes there's a minesweeper up there too, and all these other troops are behind them, and they depend on this dog's nose to prevent them from walking on or setting off these IEDs, which are the number one killer in Afghanistan. And dogs have saved so many lives you can't quantify because you don't know how many lives a dog actually saves when he sniffs out a bomb. But it's incredible, and that's the big use. Hello?
No, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, that's the main use today of these dogs, and so their nose, the nose is everything with the dog now, and that can be, and certainly for they have drug sniffing dogs as well, and one of the really interesting dog jobs I think is combat tracker dogs, and they will. Okay, so the explosives dogs sniff out the explosives. The combat tracker dogs, they sniff out the guy who planted the explosives. So they're the ones who can track through time, in a way, these dogs, the people who plant the bombs, and we've found so many people that way, or just the guy running away, the bad guy, or they can actually find the good guy too. Someone's lost, someone's missing. They found kids. They're incredible. With again, it's everyone's life depends on their nose, and as Ron and Vince can attest to, it's the bond that forms when you're over there deployed 24/7, depending on the dog's nose, and your life depends on him and he depends on you or she. It's incredible, and I feel like they can speak to this much better. I do deal a lot with that in the book, but everyone is just so dependent.
You do depend on each other, and sentry dogs, they'd be out on patrol at night, and section of the perimeter, they'd be patrolling back and forth, and it's just the two of them depending on each other, and we know about Nemo in Vietnam, what the Thornburg and Nemo did that evening, and it's what a bond that forms between those two. They both depend on each other. And the same thing with scout dogs. Yeah, and the same thing with scout dogs. You're out there on a patrol out front, leading a patrol. You're kind of like the first line of defense for that patrol, and the two of you just totally depend on each other to protect each other.
Hey, Ron, Ron, this is Vance. Would you go into Airman Thornburg and Nemo's event that evening down at Thompson?
Sure, it was third class Thornburg and Nemo. They were at the Tan Son Nhut Air Base in South Vietnam, and they've been having problems with that air base with the infiltration, the Viet Cong trying to infiltrate for several nights. And on this particular night, Thornburg and Nemo were working their section of the perimeter, and Nemo alerted out into the darkness, and Thornburg kind of looked out there, and he's looking, and all of a sudden he sees 3-4 Viet Cong coming in. They're armed. They got satchel charges and everything. So there's no time to call him for backup, so what he does is he starts firing at them, and he releases Nemo, and Nemo goes in for the attack. They fire back. Thornburg gets shot in the shoulder. He goes down, and as he's laying on the ground, he looks out into the darkness, and you see Nemo's attacking these 3-4 Viet Cong. So this gives him Thornburg enough time to actually get his radio and call in for backup. Well, by the time backup came in, Thornburg was on the ground, passed out on his back. Nemo was laying across his chest. The Viet Cong were gone, except one was dead. And what was amazing about this story, Nemo immediately came back to his handler and laid across his chest to protect him.
Mm-hmm.
But Nemo also had his right eye shot out. When he first went in for the attack, the Viet Cong shot him, blew out his right eye, came out the side of his jaw, tore a big gash. But he continued to fight the Viet Cong because this is what he's been trained to do. And then once they retreated, the first thing in his mind was to go back and protect his comrade, his friend, his buddy. That's Nemo's story. Of course, he wasn't able to work after that. I think they actually tried to see if they could work him, but he couldn't. So he came back to the States, and he was kind of a hero and went around the country. And they have a small memorial at Lackland Air Force Base for Nemo at this point.
There are many stories like Nemo. It sounds like, and in Maria, in your book, you have many of them in there that you talk about where these dogs go that extra mile to protect their handlers. In addition to the handlers, of course, going the extra mile to protect their dogs too.
Right. It goes around. That bond is both ways. And there's one reminding me of the Nemo story in a way, but just there was a handler, a Marine dog handler, Mark Vierig, who was he was on a long mission in Afghanistan, and his dog they had to sleep in foxholes, and every night. And he'd tuck in his dog next to him in the foxhole, and it was the rainy season in Afghanistan, and he'd have to wake up, a couple times a night to get the water out, because even though it's covered by a tarp, of course, there's water pouring in. And the first night this happened, it was the weirdest thing, because his dog wasn't there. And he thought, oh my God, where's Lex? And he peeled open the tarp, and there's Lex standing there on all fours, standing with his ears alert. He's a Belgian Malinois. His ears up, just standing as this man's personal sentry, as protecting his man all night. And the dog did not want to come back in. He finally dragged him back in, and sure enough, next time he'd wake up, the dog was standing there in the pouring rain. And this happened for a month. Pretty much every night the dog was out there, and he asked the dog, "When do you sleep, dog?" And the dog didn't answer, but he was just an amazing dog, and that kind of bond is incredible. There's another dog in the book, Patrick, who he's really, you're in a firefight, you got your dog beside you, and this dog, some dogs are a little gun shy. This dog, he was so mellow, he's eating grass. Well, there's a major firefight going on with the Taliban, and he had that kind of mellow personality, but he would be there and protect him at any cost, and he paid the final cost. Unfortunately, he was leading some of these guys through a poppy field and looking for some IEDs they knew were planted. And what a dog does when he or she finds a bomb is they alert in some ways, and it depends how the dog's been trained and their personality, but sometimes they'll lie down, sometimes they'll sit, sometimes it's just a slight change of behavior, a wag of a tail, a little tilt of a head. So the handler has to know really, really well, know their dog. And this time, but this dog usually lay down. This time, this dog lay down super fast, faster than the handler had ever seen him lie down, and that was the last we saw of him. He apparently laid down right on the IED, and it was he saved their lives in doing so.
I got to take a break, so
sorry.
Hold on. We'll be right back. And we're back on Veterans Radio, and we are talking with Maria Goodavage, Goodavage, about her book Soldier Dogs. And your book is amazing, Maria, and I'm so pleased that I was able to read it. And I know Vance has already swiped it from me, so let's see it when it's later. But you mentioned so many different stories in there, and unfortunately we're not going to have enough time to go into too many of them. But I would like to talk about the Fenji M675.
Yeah, I have to be careful in talking about Fenji because she goes through the book, and
I don't
we
want to
don't
give the
find
whole
out.
Story away. But.
Yeah, we don't find out really what happens to her. But I met her at what they call Afghanistan, USA, what we're calling, which is the Yuma Proving Grounds, Yuma Proving Ground, where there's this incredible pre-deployment program, the Inter-Services Advanced Training, Canine Training, and this is where you need to go if you're a dog and handler these days before you go over to Afghanistan or Iraq, because the conditions are so similar, and they have they have mock buildings and the ammo and the mortar, and it's everyone tells me that it is the closest you can come in the U.S. And while I was there, I saw this dog wearing doggles or dog goggles, and that intrigued me because I knew we had a dog with doggles on the cover of the book at that point, and so I had to go meet Fenji, and I got her story, and she was redeploying after a terrible tragedy involving her Marine handler, Max Donahue, Corporal Max Donahue, and they had been incredibly close. And I'm not going to go into what happened because people will want to find out on their own. But this is a kind of a typical soldier dog or Marine dog, American canine hero, where she went through hell and back. And guess what? She's in pre-deployment. She's back over there now, again, serving the country, serving her handler, saving lives, and she's not coming back for a few more months. She's over there right now. So, incredible dog. And after all she'd been through, and I was there in her first couple of days of training, or pre-deployment training. She was not gun-shy. She had come through it. She had gotten a lot of tender, loving care in the meantime, and she'd been gradually acclimated back to the work, and she was ready to roll, and she's over there now. So I send my best wishes to her and her current handler, Corporal Shepard.
So in other words, it sounds like she had PTSD.
She did not, actually. She did not have it. She was a little gun shy at first, but PTSD. I'm glad you brought that up. But I'll get back to her. She was pretty good. They told us that she did not actually officially qualify to have PTSD. They just gave her a lot of R&R because she was physically injured, and her hearing, her eyesight were really kind of blown for a while. She was bleeding out her ears after this event that happened over in Afghanistan. But once she was physically rested and mentally rested, she was okay. She didn't need the drug therapy that a lot of these dogs get. But I'm really glad you mentioned PTSD, because that is something that the Military Working Dog Program and the DoD are finally recognizing, that dogs can get PTSD. They call it canine PTSD. Of course, the symptoms are slightly different. They call them signs, but the signs include hypervigilance, increased startle response, the attempt to run away or escape, withdrawal, changes in rapport with the handler, and they're scared of things that they would never normally be scared of, and they do recognize that this is a disorder in these dogs, and they're reaching out to do more research to treat these dogs. I mean, we haven't got a handle on it with people, so and they're learning from PTSD in people what they can do and can't do in dogs. And it's, of course, completely different in some ways, but they do share some similarities. And these dogs now, about a quarter of them the dogs who are diagnosed with this will not be going back to the fight, and they'll be adopted out. And I actually met one of these dogs in the kennels in Lackland, and all these other dogs was the adoption kennels, and all these other dogs, the Malinois and the Sheps and everyone else, where they were barking and twirling and doing their usual energetic kennel thing. And there was this one chocolate lab curled up and just looking out into space, and not even looking at me, just oblivious to his surroundings, it seemed. And I said, "Whoa, what's with that dog?" And he said, "Yeah, he heard one too many bombs. He's got PTSD." They don't know exactly what set it off, of course, but he was in Afghanistan, and he was a sniffer dog, and something happened. And it's more I'm told by veterinarians there that these sporting dog breeds like labs are more prone to get it than the other breeds. And he received all the possible treatments, the drug intervention, the rest, and nothing worked. So he was adopted out. And I'm actually going to go see him when I go back to Lackland at the end of the month for the military working dog competition. And I'm going to meet his new owners, who love him to death. They are doing so much for him. They adopted a puppy for him, and that really seems to have brought him partly out of this. And he's really doing very, very well. He still has his signs of this. He's not over it, of course, but it's great to see that they do at least recognize this now.
We've talked a lot about the different types of dogs that go through the training with the soldier dogs or the various services. Can you tell me a little bit about what they're looking for in the handlers?
Yeah, well, the handler has to really want to do this. First of all, the handlers that we're talking about in the book mostly are military police equivalents, so whatever branch of service that is, they're the ones who are in law enforcement. And although I should say there are exceptions. There's the Marine IDD program where they are not. They're it's a different program, though, and it's probably fairly short-lived. It was an emergency program called for by Patraeus. But the standard military dog handler is in law enforcement in the military, and so that's number one. Number two, you have to really want to be a dog handler these days because it's a highly coveted job. It's prestigious, and you have to love dogs, not be afraid of dogs. Sometimes people get all the way through training, part way through training, and then they meet their dog, and they don't realize the power of these dogs and the level of energy these dogs have. And sometimes the handler just goes, yeah, I can't do this. And then they go back to regular MP work, and some other lucky soul gets to work with that dog. And you have to be willing, you have to be very physically, you should be very physically fit. Some are more than others, but you have to be willing to take the bite because you got to wear that sleeve or wear that bite suit and have dogs running at you at who knows how many miles per hour and take if you're going to be a patrol handler, and even if you're not, you have to know how to handle these dogs. And a lot of these people have not been brought up with dogs. Many have, but some just love dogs so much, and they have to pay their dues. Especially, I met some Navy handlers who spent 2 years helping around the kennels. They were MPs, the Navy's equivalent, Masters of Arms, and they were shoveling poop. They were cleaning the kennels. They were taking the bites. They were just doing whatever they could to prove that they want to do this. And so they are so happy by the time they finally get to Lackland and get to go to the handler's course. So they have that drive to be with the dog. And they seem to have, they are amazed when I talk to the new handlers, the people at dog school. They're amazed at how much they've fallen in love with their dogs so fast, because these dogs, they have dogs at dog school, as you can imagine, or a handler's course, who help train these handlers. So they're called training aides, and these are dogs who may have served and gotten a little bit too old or not quite right for serving, but they can be here in the U.S. serving as teachers. And same with, they may be washouts. They may not be ready to go. They may not ever be able to go overseas and serve in war, but they're here to help. They've been trained up enough so that they can help a new handler learn. And so some of these guys are like, yeah, my dog taught me everything. It's like, hey, come over here, buddy, and I'll sniff out the bomb for you. You give me my Kong and we're good. So they learn from these dogs who are kind of sages, and then these dogs can get adopted out as well. So it's quite a program, and there's a lot of love there.
You mentioned in the book, and we're coming up, we've got about 4 minutes left, and the time has sped by too quickly, as usual. But you mentioned in the book about the adoption programs, about the incredible medical care that these dogs receive now. The facilities are equivalent to, and in some cases better than some humans get. It sounded like at Lackland. But you said that there's been an upsurge in the adoption of these animals. And, some of them are physically scarred, some of them are mentally scarred, and some of them are just getting old.
Right. But what's interesting is everybody after the Bin Laden raid, everybody was calling Lackland saying, I want to adopt Cairo, the dog who was involved in the raid. And they're like, oh, yeah, we don't have Cairo, but we do have other dogs. And so the list got to be about 18 months long for adopting, and they vet them too, so they're not going to take everybody who wants to adopt a military dog, because there are people who want to adopt a dog for wrong reasons too. So they're right now currently almost 18 months if you want to adopt one of these dogs, and generally they're not going to be dogs who have deployed with a handler, because that handler or another handler is probably going to be first on the list and really want that dog and fight to get that dog, and handlers and other law enforcement are first on the list. But it's absolutely a completely worthy program, and Ron helps people with that. And I definitely want to give a plug to Ron's group, because you definitely, Ron, give your website, because if people really want to know how to support these dog teams and what they can do, and his organization is my favorite. It's the Primo one, and I don't know if we have time, but tell a little about what you can do for the dogs and how you can support them.
Well, our website is uswardogs.org. And we have a lot of information on there for adopting dogs or supporting the canine teams that are serving in the Middle East. It's all there for you to read, and my contact information is right there on the website. You could email me, phone me, and I'll give you whatever information you need. One point I'd like to make real quick, we keep mentioning Lackland Air Force Base, and just for your listeners, that is where the National War Dog Memorial will be located now. Will be at Lackland Air Force Base, and it'll probably be about 2 years before they actually have a dedication.
All right, well, we can find out more information about that. Thank you so very much, Ron, for being on Veterans Radio.
Thank you.
And, Maria, I wanted to thank you so very much. I can't wait to have you back on again and talk more about this, because there's so much information inside of this book that I think our audiences would love to know about. It's Soldier Dogs, the untold story of America's canine heroes. Go to her website, soldierdogs.com. You're going to get great information and some great pictures.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure being here.
Thank you very much, Maria.
Thanks, Dale.
Thank you.
Thank you both. And Vance, I want to just ask, we got about a minute to go, and I know in reading her book and in talking to you that your dogs, all three of them, were very special to you.
Oh, absolutely. There's a bond that's formed, whether you served in a war zone or whether you were in a peacetime area or a stateside. You form a bond with your dog that's there forever. I think of all three of my dogs just about every day.
I know you do.
Yeah,
I know you do. I know you would have liked to have the opportunity to adopt them like they do today. Thanks so very much.
You're welcome. Thanks for inviting me into the studio.
And we'll be back next week with another program. We want to thank our sponsors, U.S. Wings, Ave Maria University for their scholarship program. Until next week, you've been listening to Veterans Radio. You are dismissed.
All views and opinions expressed on this program are not necessarily of Veterans Radio or the station. Veterans Radio is a production of Veterans Radio, LLC.